This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
Healthcare vendors, such as pharmaceutical companies, spend an average of $60,000 per doctor per year, bringing them lunches, dinners, and other events just to get their product details and service details in front of the busy physician. It's extremely inefficient, and I have a better solution. I'm a physician assistant. I've practiced medicine. I've managed my own practice. I've been on the boards of medical associations and also conference planning committees. I've also been a consultant in marketing strategies for pharmaceutical companies. And I'm a vendor myself as I own a turnkey diagnostic company. And my solution is MedPortal. It's a universal portal system for medical associations, their medical users, and it's also a place where vendors can detail their products for a fee. And we have a unique strategy to entice associations to join, automatically enrolling all their physician users, entice the users to use the product, and our unique tracking mechanisms not only report the demographics of our users, but also their actual usage, so we can prove to the vendors the value of the product. As of this month, we just launched. I've already signed on 2 associations and 2 vendors. I'm done. Questions?
All right, Thomas. So, I think you started the pitch in an excellent way. You piqued my interest right away because this is a big problem. Or it's a big industry. $60,000 being spent by pharma reps to talk to physicians. You have a better solution. I mean, I'm like, this sounded like a great dramatic story here that you're about to tell, and it was. And so the way you did it was the way in which it should be done, which is simple, straight, and then piquing my interest. But you didn't answer the question that I had, which is the motivation. And I think you need to do that. If you got me set, and now you got to put the punch.
Yeah.
And I really don't. I mean, I think the fact that people buy lunches and pay for all kinds of free things to physicians. There's a reason why that exists. And right. the motivation, and to take that away, it works. So having a portal, you talked about your solution as what sounded like a pretty dry system to me. Maybe it's not, but that's how it sounded. So I kind of, you had me really high, and then I just dropped down to try to understand, well, what is really going to motivate these people to use this thing when a nice lunch is so nice, for
right.
these physicians.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, you lost me there.
As far as the presentation goes, I cut out a little bit in the middle because I was fumbling a little bit. I'm used to presenting this to mostly physicians and so forth in the industry. So I pitch it.
Say that part now.
Okay.
Yeah. Say that part now. Yeah.
Okay, so we entice associations by giving them various tools, and it's for free. Part of that, we incorporate ourselves into their medical conferences, which is something that just about all physicians do because they're required to get medical education, right. And that's the preferred method. So we're actually in the conferences, we hold their hands throughout their initial usage, and then they're enticed to continue using it when they leave through various rewards.
Okay.
So one of the most powerful things you can trigger in somebody else is reciprocity bias, right? We're like, if I give you tickets to the Panther game, right? You know, we both sort of know that you owe me, right? And and I can cash that in. I can cash that in at some future unspecified date. And a lot of medical salespeople will buy lunch or buy dinner or pay for golf, knowing full well that they're going to make a whole lot more money on the back end when Mr. Doctor, or I guess he'd be Doctor, starts prescribing whatever the medicine of choice is, right?
Yeah.
How is this going to trigger an equally valuable response for the seller?
Right. Well, there's 2 ways to really get physicians away from their busy schedules and their management to engage you. You can either entice them financially or force them, and I take the latter actually. So normally, the numbers I've looked at is anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500 per doctor per lunch, dinner event, whatnot. That's extremely expensive. Some vendors can't afford that, pharma can, but what we do is as they use the portal, whether they're researching a pharma product or they're at a conference doing their question and answering through our post-conferencing features, that's being tracked and reported back to them as medical education, something that they're required to get, something they don't really like to get, but they're forced to. So we make an easier way to get that medical education.
So they get continuing education credits for using your platform?
Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty awesome, and I would say that really clearly right up at the beginning, because like that's pretty cool. How are you able to do that, man?
Mostly for the same reason that this is valuable to the vendors and the associations. Our software tracks all activity. It's got a lot of collaborative, interactive features. You can put in mixed media, publishing, just like, we appeal to the ego as well, so there's lots of, you get a lot of validation methods and so forth when people publish through our portal. But essentially it tracks everything that everybody does and reports it back to them. And this is the type of thing that as we develop this, we're going to continue to develop this. We're eventually going to get it upgraded in the category of medical education. We're going to bring this to accrediting bodies and so forth.
The other thing that you said, which I think is an interesting point, is pharma companies have a lot of money, and so they don't really see this as a problem, I don't think, necessarily, because with the return on the investment is pretty good.
Well, the public does. I mean, they've really, when I first started 15 years ago, they would take me to football games and fly me across the country. They're not allowed to do that anymore, and they're getting more and more marginalized with what they're allowed to do. And one of the major barriers now is with the Affordable Health Care Act. In 2013, they enacted what's called the Sunshine Act, and pharma companies now have to publish every dollar they spend on every physician and name them. So any physician who's an employee of a hospital system or a larger corporation that doesn't benefit from a lunch, they've now basically banned that. They don't allow pharma reps on site. So all the independent doctors are still getting bombarded, but there's a large population that's not included. In addition, again, it's expensive and it's still very limited engagement, whereas this is more continuous engagement. There's always availability for questions, answers versus that limited amount of time.
So do you have any data from actual doctors actually using this and really doing it?
The product went live this month. So we did the day after we launched, we did one small conference just basically to make sure there wasn't any bugs, and I knew the speakers and they went on and some of the people who signed on. So it's kind of a test run, but I mean the billion-dollar question is how much engagement from the physicians can we get? That really is it, because that's what makes it valuable. No one has really been able to engage physicians up to this point without spending an awful lot of money.
Not buying them lunch.
You're going to be competing with other CME type of things, type of activities, right? Just going through the conference themselves. But I would pitch it a little differently. I think. Because the one issue that you have is that I don't know that it's going to be this, even if this works very well, and I have no doubt that it probably will work in some level. I don't know that it's going to work right away with every single doctor, with every single pharma company. And again, I think a startup needs to think about the steps that it takes as it grows and progresses into its future. And I think I would try to not pitch how you are going to change. Think about the vision, yes, but you also need to pitch your progression. And maybe who cares about this today? Like maybe it's small pharma companies that are going to be more likely to take advantage of this, or maybe it's a group of physicians of a certain type, maybe primary care physicians that are more likely to use it. I would pitch it that way as an entry point, because to think about the fact that you're going to fight all the pharma and all the money that is in there and change it overnight, that's really hard. So you got to make us feel what is the path that you're going to take to get there eventually.
See, but dude, I think you have a total handle on this, because if you can't engage the doctors, you got something. Like, I mean, you have something for real. So like, sounds to me like you're working on the right problem.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all want to say? Yeah.
Can you pitch it as a continuing education service, and just leave the story of how you monetize the whole thing in the back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of how I pitch it to doctors, because they understand like the culture and psychology and the associations, how they run and so forth. Like I said, I have three, other than investors, I have three types of customers. I have associations who are a main selling point, because they give us access to the
Distribution,
physicians. Yeah, and then we really don't sell to individual users or the physicians themselves,
Right.
but we do have to have a way of enrolling and engaging them.
But are there free continuing education services online that I can go to as a doctor today?
Well, we won't be the ones to provide that. There's plenty of companies that do that, but we'll partner with them and let them put their education in our portal. And sometimes it depends on the nature of the education company. Some would be per fee if they're just charging a fee. If it's one that has some type of sponsorship or ad, to generate the revenue, then we would, get a part of that. So again, we want to kind of be that central place. And the advantages of working with us is that we have this conference extension and tracking software. So not only do they get that educational CME that's in the portal provided by somebody else, but anything they do to collaborate, answer questions with each other past that, they get additional CME.
I mean, like, your presentation's good. This is way outside the domain of feedback on your presentation, but I think if I were you, I would put 90% of my energy on learning about physician engagement and how you can really get that rolling, and 10% on distribution. Because if you get decent distribution for something that doesn't engage, it's not going to work out. But if you can get the engagement thing right, the distribution will come.
Yeah,
people will want it.
Yeah, I have a pretty detailed strategy for that, and I have a mentor in consumer engagement online.
Right on.
I don't want to give away all my
everything.
tricks of the trade,
Yeah.
but yeah, we have a big detailed list attacking it from multiple angles, from regulatory incentives, financial incentives, boosting ego, and all that kind of stuff. Everyone has their different motivations to stay engaged.
Yeah, just because user engagement is hard doesn't mean you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
People do it, so that'd be good. You think y'all want to say anything? Yeah.
I think there's a third avenue for getting in front of doctors. You mentioned financial and force, but I think that at the heart, everyone who has gone into medicine has done so because they cared about people. And if you convince them that your product is going to help their patients, then that rings through to them. As a practitioner who has to sell to doctors myself, I think that I do have to rely on the other two methods at times, but the power of patient well-being and speaking to why it's going to make them look like a better doctor if they use me, that's probably my most powerful tool, and I think it can become your most powerful.
Yeah, like this is a more ethical way to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Just this is a general comment on, and it applies to all of them in terms of, and I think Chris mentioned this earlier, pitching the problem and the solution more so than pitching the product. I think it's really easy for people who have domain expertise to come in and say, this is a coffee cup and it's a better coffee cup and what does it do? But for those that don't drink coffee, it's completely lost on them. So you described, as you started to talk about the evolution of access to physicians and regulatory changes and things like that, I'm like, there's the issue, right? It's access to the physician and painting the problem and the picture in the market and what's happening, and then how your specific product solves that problem for them. That, in every case, I think helps us come to the next phase, as Chris described, which is, okay, now tell me more. Let me get to the next point where I can better understand the market, the solutions, the products, and do all of those things. But if you don't start with the problem, I get lost in the product.
Thank you, Eric.
There you go, man. That's good.